We got a baby here with hiccups. Hello, this is Cindy from Part-Time Permies and
Michael.
And Bella hiding in the corner here. I see Tina and Curie in the room. I think there's only a few people in here so far. But we'll, I guess, get going and just switching pictures. Man, you get the hiccups. I don't know if you guys can hear that. Let's have a sound check, actually. Looks like a happy pudding. Happy pudding. Oh, in the pictures. You haven't seen my pictures from this morning.
No.
No, so I'll have to show him. We'll get to that. ASL Harvard Homestead's in the room. Your mom's in the room. Did you survive your first daddy day?
I did.
Yeah, Friday was Mike's first day on his own with Bella, and he's got his first week on his own coming up, although we do have a sitter set up for one day, part of one day. But yeah, so let's see here. What do we have so far? We have, well, I do have some here, the hiccups. Do have some flock updates. And the first one is gifts that came from Kara and Cecil. They're a new flock for Bella. She has a stuffed flock with including a guard goose and 2 silkies. So Bella now has her own flock of chickens with its guard. So she's still hiccuping. It's getting quieter. But yeah, so we do have, I did do chicken tours this morning, so I have some flock updates otherwise, but thanks ASL. Did chop off my hair to donate. I still have to send it out, but I have it ready to donate. Got a couple other little Bella Pics updates. She's starting to grasp onto things, so that is one of her favorite toys. She doesn't actually reach and grasp it. I have to put it in her hands, but she is exploring holding onto a few toys. Oh, really? We're going to get upset? I do have a bottle here for you. Okay, sorry guys. Let's see here. And we do have chicken update. So Lucky and the chickens, the main flock, are doing well. Gus and the Silkies are doing well. Mike's been doing most of the chicken chores, so Mike could probably tell you how they've been doing with the cold.
They're fine. It hasn't been that cold.
It hasn't been that cold. We're almost halfway through January, and I think most of the days have been above freezing.
Yeah, they're fine. They're going outside most days.
Yeah, outside into the run, outside into the fenced-in area outside of that as well. Some days we have water access right near the coops. This morning it was 20 degrees outside, so I pretty much got the water at the house and hauled it out. So I actually did the chicken tours this morning. And the other thing about this morning and cold is sometimes you get frozen pools. Although this is not bad. This I could break up with my foot.
It was hard enough last week. I could hardly smash through it one day, and then we got a little warm up.
Yeah, so usually the geese are without pools. We do have some heated water bowls for the geese as well. They're basically dog bowls that we plug in and let them have it. And Carrie says 4 years ago today she bought her geese. Oh, that's cool. Your daughter donated her hair. ASL. Yeah, this is the second time I'm donating my hair. I did that a couple years ago. In fact, made a video of it a couple years ago as well.
ASL lost a pig today.
Oh, no.
Cooney pig.
Oh, no.
Yeah, the Pratts lost a couple pigs this last season.
Yeah.
Same thing, somewhat kind of unknown, and it happens.
It does. 3-month-old. Do you know what happened to it? If it was like disease related or...
He likes.
Oh, and the cat is always jealous when I have Bella in my lap. But yeah, if it was disease related or... I have not heard of anyone losing pigs to predators. I don't know why that would be, especially young pigs, but
I don't know.
That's one thing I haven't heard anyone talk about. I mean,
We've
chickens we
we've never
lose.
we've never had pigs, so
No, so yeah. Um, so yeah.
hey Lex, move.
He's not. He's okay. He's not really in the way, but yeah, you might see a tail come across the screen. um, but yeah, so frozen pools are the main challenge at the moment for winter. We haven't added to the flock other than Bella's stuffed additions, but yeah, so no, found her this morning. She seemed bloated, but not rigid.
I don't know. Can pigs get bloat like dogs?
Or get intestines twisted or
Yeah,
something like that.
we've lost dog to bloat and almost lost another dog to bloat.
Yeah, we did. So yeah, cattails in the screen. And then I also got to take Puddin on a walk this morning. Bella was asleep. Oh, and you're gonna fall asleep at the screen here. Bella was asleep, so I left her with Mike and took care of the chickens and took Puddin on a walk. And Puddin was so excited she ran out there, which she does, and then comes running back to me because I'm not running, so I'm too slow for her. But she was definitely excited for her walk. So that was pretty much this morning. And Bella's chit-chatting too, if you can't hear that. Let's see here. We also had a huge rainstorm. I think half the country had a huge rainstorm.
Yeah.
It was, they thought it was.
We missed a lot of it.
We did, but we still had a good amount of standing water and back. So I think we had most of it as rain. They were expecting for us to get more ice, but I think it took longer to freeze. And it froze pretty much straight into snow. We didn't get a whole lot of ice underneath that snow, which I think we got lucky.
Where is that in back?
That's where it builds up water on the trails.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
It's like, because we don't usually have pooling water.
We don't on our property, but on the back trails, there's an area that
true.
is compacted because the neighbor used to drive back there, and it just never really absorbs the water very well. So that's why you need to have loose soil, basically, is to help let the water absorb into it, not have standing water.
You gotta move.
Cat on the lap. So yeah, so the water definitely turned to snow, but it really didn't snow that much. We only have a dusting out there. And Diana's in the room, so hello, Diana. So that's, I mean, basically we haven't had too many big projects. My big thing was going back to work this week. So I was at my first week back, which means I didn't do much around the house. And Kara was, and your dad were here, your mom and dad were here all week until Friday. And then, so Bella got to spend a lot of time in the arms of Grandma and got to hang out that way. But that's changing all this week. So Tina says she got a huge windstorm. Plastic stayed on the porch though. Yeah, I don't think I told you. She sent pictures on our Part-Time Permies page today, was that, or yesterday, where she enclosed her front porch to make a greenhouse, enclosed it in plastic. So she's starting to do that too. We haven't had too much problem with the plastic.
No, we've had a few clips pop off.
Yeah.
But if it's pulled fairly tight and clipped down, we haven't had problems.
Yeah.
Went through all last winter and we had some very windy times, so yeah.
And it was pretty windy here with some of the storm, because we had, I think, what were we? We were almost 50 degrees on Friday or Saturday morning.
Saturday morning was 53.
Yeah, it was 50s Saturday morning, and then by last night and early this morning it was like 20 degrees. So we like dropped 30 degrees. We've had bigger drops, but we dropped 30 degrees yesterday, which was a little nuts. But you still went to the market.
Yep.
That we were debating. How was the market?
It was kind of average, a little bit slow. We had we had a lot of vendors. I'd say 25% of vendors didn't show up, and 50% of other people didn't show up, but the people that did show up were there to buy stuff. So sometimes that kind of balances it out a little bit.
Instead of just window shopping,
Window shopping, not sure why they're there.
hanging out because they go
So
to the
yeah,
market.
everybody who was there knew why
Yeah.
they were there, and so yeah, it was.
Yeah.
It's always slow in the winter, but it was not just a little below average, probably.
Yeah. I did get some work done on the webpage a little bit today and some photography done. So I'm going to go to this next picture. And if you think of questions for Mike for Ask the Chef, let me know. But this is a new pasta that's up on the webpage. It's the Celebrate 2020 pasta. And do you want to explain what's in the Celebrate 2020?
Well, we've had it for a while. We gave it away in December, beginning of December.
We have, but it hasn't been on the webpage. It's been available at the market. So anybody interested in that can get it.
Yeah,
But
so
what's in
that's
it?
our current chef feature item. It's a Russell Hanut, which means top of the shelf spice blend in the yellow, along with pumpkin. So that's got some nice, heavier, rich brown spices and some turmeric in it. So um, things like a little bit of clove and allspice and other flavors. So it's similar to a curry, but more like a deeper, richer brown spice flavor than our kind of standard yellow curry. So I wouldn't compare them exactly, other than it's a spice blend like that. So that mixed on top of the pumpkin flavor, and then we have our black and white. So that's sort of festive for the holidays, heading into the new year. And so we made, I don't know, I think we made about 120, between 100 and 120.
So it's available
as a limited run.
Limited time.
So yeah, so that's been doing well.
What would you do with that?
Cook it. Eat it.
What would you put with that?
There's a lot of flexibilities on that. I think it would do nice with red meats, so lamb or duck, roasted meats and leftover bits and pieces of things. I think that would work really well. You might be able to do it with some seafood, and something like some shrimp or lobster or something like that. I think would pair nicely, and yeah.
So we're gonna have make some for ourselves. Your mom said she had the spaghetti today, so yeah, they got a bunch of pasta to take home with them, right?
Yep.
So and then who else got pasta? Someone else ordered pasta like a week or so ago. Recently, and wasn't that someone from?
No.
Okay, that was the other group.
Other orders.
Okay, had a few online orders, so that's picked up a little bit.
Yeah, we've actually had some post Christmas, which kind of surprised me.
Yeah.
Figured things would go a little bit dead on the mail order end for a bit,
but it's still going.
There's always people asking for stuff, so yeah. So
you can always check out, if you're interested, you can check out our webpage. But if you need any cooking questions, ideas, let us know, because you got the chef right here. Anybody have cooking questions for him today? And hopefully we're not going to get upset today. But I'm going to post the webpage here. What else have you been working on this week?
We were reconditioning our floors and rebuilding the drying room, which business-wise, so took a moment while things were at a little bit of a slow period, although I've got projects waiting to tear apart the kitchen and kind of just do some refresh and updates for keeping it clean and orderly and everything up to code. So we did that, and that's kind of coming out. And then just doing regular business and getting ready to get everything back up and running, trying to relearn the drying room. We've changed some of the dynamics of it, so I'm got to be a little careful to make sure it doesn't change in behavior.
What happens when the drying room dries too fast or something goes off?
If things dry too fast, you get cracking and you get fracturing of water trying to get out from the center of the pasta. And that doesn't always happen right away. Sometimes it does, but sometimes it can actually happen a week or two later, and you can get instability showing up in micro cracks, which lead to either it just not performing as well as it should, or actually falling apart. And and if it dries too slow, you could potentially get yeast or mold growth, which doesn't work. Or if you have incomplete drying, it could also lead to mold growth.
So that's why having your procedures and your temperatures and your humidity is all correct at the
Yeah,
right times.
so it replicates. Originally, pasta was dried along the Italian coast areas, so down through Naples and then across the other side towards Bari were big areas for, and also up in Bologna. So almost everywhere you had strong wind gusts that change between day and night. And if you're on the coastal areas, you got nice, warm, humid um, water or air coming off of the water during the day, and then at night you would get cool, dry air coming down off the mountains and hills off the land. And that back and forth cycle over a couple of days actually creates the perfect drying. So some of the best pastas work to replicate that, and there are a few pastas that are still dried in the streets and and open dried. Very few places have the climate and either temperature or humidity to be able to do that consistently. So we don't. So we replicate some aspects of that, and it seems to work.
Yeah. So trying to make it as close as.
Yeah, so that's different compared to industrial pasta. It goes basically into a low to moderately high temperature oven conveyor, and it is kiln dried sometimes in 3 to 6 hours. I take about 3 days. So there's a
slow air dried.
So that changes, and I'm certain that it affects the texture qualities as well as
The flavor.
The flavor is just a little more complex, slowing things down, and then also not applying all the heat and sort of that cooking process. The grain is actually still a raw product when I finish with it. So that finishes. So that obviously is going to change the qualities of the pasta.
Yeah. And last week I realized I was kind of whipping through so many things that we didn't really get to talk about the goals too much. So we can talk about that a little bit this week. I know we touched on
the
the
week
very end.
before?
No, that was last week.
Okay.
Was the goals. This is the second weekend of January.
Yeah.
The weekend before was wrapping up 2019.
Okay.
Yeah. You said that last week too.
Well, you put the slide up the week before.
No, it was last week that I put the slide up.
You had the slide up the week before
No,
that.
I
You
didn't.
did at the end. You had it as a.
No.
Yeah.
Goals anyway. Last week it was the title slide, and we're talking about the garden and wanting to do new things, and hopefully getting some more time in the garden, which that will be an interesting goal, or at least trying to become a little more efficient in that. I did mention sesame would be one new thing we want to try. Trying to, hopefully our weather works this year. So our biggest problem 2019 was having 2 months straight of rain and then a pretty decent dry spell for a month. So a lot of people in Michigan had a bad grow year. Tomatoes were doing bad. I don't think they root.
I'd say most of the professionals in general had a pretty bad year if they're doing outdoor growing. If they had some hoop growing, they could moderate some activities, but they also were challenged.
I think part of it had to do with having so much rain. You don't get much root establishment. They don't have to stress the plants to get the roots established, and then you get into a dry spell and they just don't do well because they're not set up to do well. But hopefully this year we'll have it better, although it's starting off kind of weird. We don't have the snow. Or much of it.
We haven't had a lot of snow.
And that's sometimes our early moisture. So hopefully we'll get some snow in the next couple of months.
Well, the water table is still really high.
It is.
So as far as groundwater, there's plenty. There's no shortage there.
Yeah.
Rainwater is different.
So we'll see what happens this spring along those lines, but we'll try to get some things started in the greenhouse again. Just get some seeds going, get them in the ground, and hopefully be able to take care of things a little bit.
Delia made it in.
Hi, Delia. So that is one thing. I do want to get some more perennials for the food forest. We can see what we could pick up. Just a couple things here or there. We do have some.
Good. I wear aprons. Jumped in.
Hello. We do have some. I'm trying to remember the name of those plums. They're a canning or jam plum that I need to put in the ground. Beach plums. There we go. They're not really eating plum. I think they tend to be very tart, but those need to go in the ground somewhere, so that'll go into the food for us. Chickens, we want to do compare the two meat breeds that most people use. So maybe we'll do 2 rounds, maybe we'll do them at the same time, but that would require building another coop, another meat chicken tractor. So, of course, I did that in my 3rd trimester pregnant with Bella this last year. Today is the anniversary of when San Antonio got over 13 inches of snow back in the 80s.
Wow, that's a lot of snow for Texas.
That is a lot of snow down there. Yeah, my first year here, we ended up, I moved into this house with a couple feet of snow on the ground and hitting like -15 or something like that outside, and trying to learn how to take care of chickens in the winter was a fun challenge. So, and Susan's here. So hello. But yeah, so more meat chickens, keep our freezers full. We're not doing pigs this year. Oh, you know what's funny? Justin had his pregnancy thing, his pregnant outfit doing farm chores, like he's in his 3rd trimester pregnant this week. And my thought was at the end of all that, but you didn't butcher chickens. What was I doing at 37 weeks pregnant?
You weren't butchering them. You're just
I was catching them.
You're catching them.
Catching chickens. He was having trouble stepping over fences and balance and stuff. So yeah, that happens. Anyway, I just thought that was funny as I watched his video this week on that. Totally cropped this. What? The city. Is that in relation to the snow? Or is that a typo? I don't understand that sentence. Anyway, but yeah, so we had that. We have probably, we'll have to see if Nabi's doing any more foraging.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know if she
only
did
been
it
doing the spring and fall one recently.
Yeah, she only did the. Did she end up doing the fall one? Because
No,
it
it
was
got rained
canceled.
out.
Yeah, so we only had a morel foraging this last year with Nabi. Although I will continue to try to crippled. I was like, that's got to be a typo. Yeah, crippled the city. I bet. But no, so we'll try to get some foraging or forage featured items up every once in a while, maybe shorter videos, because her forages were long, 3 hours long. Hard to get down to a short video, but really detailed and tons of information. So maybe a little bit more of focusing on certain things, keeping shorter video, keeping my editing time down because I have no time to edit right now. Hopefully that will get in once I get used to working. That's another thing. I want to get back into making maybe a video a week if I can, but the time of that is right now it's not working. So I have to get into my work schedule and see how that goes with Bella before we can figure out that. But yeah, and your business is pretty much taking off even with the winter.
Yeah, we're keeping pretty busy.
Yeah.
Got plenty to do right now.
You had something else you wanted to add this winter to your business. Well, not to the pasta side of things.
I don't know.
Class.
Yeah, well, I'm trying to pull together a class. I still need to write up some specs on that, trying to do a limited 1-day butchering class. Right now we're looking at the last weekend in February, but I need to get some material and I'm still trying to source product for it. So yeah, that's on
the to-do
so that
list.
might, if there's people that are interested in coming out here to do a 1-day breakfast butchery class, that's going to be
pork,
open.
right?
It's going to, well, yeah, breakfast.
Yeah.
It's pretty much pork.
Bacon and sausage.
Yeah, and then so we're going to do a whole day of making, and we're going to have an option for people who want to bring product home that will split shares of the combined product made with the group. It'll be a small group, 6 to 10 people max. And it'll be an all-day intensive class, and I'll provide everything for that. And then those that want to buy into product can buy a share of it beforehand, and then we'll know kind of roughly what's being produced or if we need a little more of something for somebody, we'll try and set that all up and then get it all portioned out within something close to
Yeah.
what we expect. So yeah, these are things I've been doing a lot of off and on a couple of times a year. So we're going to kind of teach other people to do them.
Yeah. So if you're interested in where are you going to start with that? Like with primals and go down, or
I'm thinking we will get half a
pig?
whole hog or maybe a whole hog
Mm-hmm.
and break cuts to show that quickly in the morning, just as a beginning step, so people kind of are familiar, which may give some opportunity to break down the other half. That's not fully conducive for some of the breakfast cuts. We use a lot of them, but there's a lot of grinding and other things, so we will bring in, like, you don't use the ribs for breakfast usually.
No, not typically.
And you can do Canadian bacon with the loin, and you can do English bacon with the shoulder. You can get an English cut out of the top of the shoulder. And then you can hams, you can do things, but we'll end up having to bring in additional appropriate things like more shoulder for grind. But we're going to try and do some blood pudding and probably some scrapple.
Mm-hmm.
And some of the things I'll have to produce a little bit ahead of time, or things will be in process. So people will leave with like bacon in cure, but it takes 7 days to cure. So the finishing up of that process and directions will go with those that need to do that. And I think anybody who attends the class wants bacon.
Yeah,
So, but we'll
sure.
have some stuff, and then we're gonna have a celebration meal at the end of
Who
it.
doesn't want bacon who eats pork? I don't know anybody who doesn't like bacon unless they just don't eat pork or meat. But
yeah, so we're gonna do that. So that's
yeah.
Trying to get the stuff put together for it. I was hoping to do a lot of it today. I had other things I was still clearing out of the way. So yeah.
So that will be coming up hopefully at the end of February. And if anybody is interested in that class, you can always shoot me an email if you want us to let you know.
If there's a preferred day also, because we're going to probably offer it a second time, probably in March or early April. So if there is somebody who's very interested, like sure they want to attend, but has some restrictions on weekends, it'll be a Saturday all day. Let us know. We'll try and we'll try our best to coordinate with get the best turnout.
Yeah.
So it has to be done by
before May.
Early April, mid-April, the very latest, because things are gearing up for market in May, the very beginning, first weekend in May.
You do markets year round. You do a winter market, but the winter market's a lot slower this time.
It's actually super slow in April, typically. So first weekend or second weekend in April may not be so bad. I'll just skip market for that day.
Easter's in April this year, so we'll have to watch that weekend.
Not be doing it on Easter weekend. No. So we're actually going to look at. We were looking at doing it in January, earlier in February.
Yeah.
Between schedules and getting everything ready, and then looking at Super Bowl, some other major culinary events taking place in town. That I didn't want to step on. Either I was attending, or actually I'm attending most of them.
Yeah.
And participating in them. So so we're trying to actually already in January, February. It's difficult to plug in open dates, but we're getting close. So we're thinking last weekend in February right now.
Yeah. So we'll probably have an official announcement of at least the first date in the next week or so.
Yeah, hopefully. So let's say tentatively.
Yeah.
Last Saturday.
Yeah. So tentatively last Saturday of February, but we'll get that official.
I saw a bumper sticker for Scrapple, by the way, this week.
You did?
Yeah.
What did it say?
I think it just said Scrapple or Scrapple Yay or something. I don't know. It was weird.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
How many people in this area know Scrapple?
It's more common in the South. Well, I don't know. It's relatively common, but not.
It's more common on the East Coast.
Yeah.
You did find out where it was originated, right?
I did.
I thought you said something. Was it Scrapple or was it something else that was originated in Maryland? Baltimore. Or something.
Oh yeah. Well, I guess that's one of the key areas. So.
Yeah. Which is why my mom knows it so well and grew up with it.
Yeah, I don't think it originated there, but it's very common there. So that's why, because that's where she grew up.
Yeah.
But also we know that central and eastern Pennsylvania and really across much of the country. So, yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, so have lots of things coming up along those lines. Do we have any building projects this year? If we do another set of meat chickens, we might need a second coop,
Yeah, I
meat
don't know.
coop,
We'll have
but
to see. No.
I don't think we have any building projects on the list. And here comes Puddin'. She might make an appearance. Coming through. There she is. Um, so yeah, so I don't have any plans on that. We just keep making adjustments to the greenhouse and put together what we need as we go. I have some long-term ooh, that was a good one. I have some long-term things I'd like to try to do at some point, but it hasn't moved to the top of the list yet. So we'll have to see what comes up this year, especially with this one taking our time. So, any going back to any cooking questions, we haven't seen any cooking questions coming up today, which is unusual. We usually have a bunch of cooking ones. Questions about pasta, questions about flavored pasta, questions about anything
Doesn't
else.
have to be about pasta.
It doesn't have to be about pasta.
People ask me all the time, how much pasta do you eat? When I lived in Italy, for the year I lived in Italy, we ate pasta like twice a day at the school I was going to. Now it's once, maybe twice a week. I mean, it doesn't. Yeah, it's a regular part of our meals, but definitely not a constant part.
Yeah.
So
Puddin' just wants the bed behind me.
I guess the last thing we made macaroni and cheese at my mom's request.
Yep.
One
We had
night.
lasagna.
She brought lasagna.
Yeah. Do we have any other pasta?
You had some pasta when we went out to eat. Well, we went out to eat 2 places that serve our pasta, and
Yeah.
at times people had.
Bucatini.
I guess we all at different times had
some pasta.
Pastas because I had the ramen at
We had a lot more pasta the last 2 weeks than we normally do.
We had a little bit more, yeah.
So yeah, and then we
cooked a leg of lamb.
We did
I
cook the leg of lamb.
barbecued. It was boned out already, and so it was a rolled and tied, a BRT, bone rolled tied, and I actually roughly cut it into the 4 primary muscle groups and marinated it in red onions, whole cut open garlic, olive oil, some coriander and spices, and a little bit of leftover red wine overnight. And then I threw all of that on the barbecue, and we roasted it, and actually put the heads of cut open garlic, it was just cut across the top, on the barbecue and roasted that down. And yeah, some of that we made some tostadas or today with a little bit of that roasted lamb chopped up and quick sauteed with a little bit of hot sauce, and actually I put some of that the end of the roasted garlic in there.
And I had some on our sourdough bread with the lamb and with some roasted garlic. So yeah, so we have a couple of things coming.
Quick shrimp stock, yeah, that's a good one, and beets. So I like beets quite a bit. Cindy's not as big of a fan of beets.
I like gold beets. The red ones I don't like as well.
So you can shave them on a mandolin very, very thin, and eat them raw, and kind of pickle them quick in vinegar, or just do them in oil and herbs and spice, and salt, and make a nice salad. You have to watch out for 2 things in beets. They can taste very earthy and kind of dirty sometimes, and sometimes they taste really sweet. It just depends on the growing conditions, and you never really know. The other thing you can do with them is, because they're so high in iron and minerals, sometimes you get a very metallic aftertaste from raw beets, and that also varies somewhat on growing conditions. So you actually get so it's interesting. People that are watching their mineral intake, like say somebody on dialysis, probably can't eat beets, especially raw beets, because they are so heavy in minerals. But so that's one thing. Super thin shaved. You can also julienne them. They're really crunchy. Of course, the red ones stain everything. It'll stain. You can introduce it into parts of your coleslaw or raw cabbage dishes. You can glaze beets that does not involve an oven. So you either cut rings or dice them up into like large or medium dice, and you add sugar and stock or water, and you let them boil down either till they're just glazed with sugar coating and salt, sugar, and butter, which is an old classical way, or you can actually keep cooking until they caramelize a little bit, and that sugar becomes more of a caramel and candied. And glazed beets, made just in a saute pan, are really, really good. You can do that with any of your root vegetables. Glazed turnips or rutabagas, they're amazing. And then you can play with things like um, not using nutmeg with parsnips, or really any of them. You can use other spices, uh, you know, brown savory spices. You can use fresh herbs at the end, or shallots, or red onion. You can also do could even use curry, curry powder, curry paste to finish them. You got to watch those things don't burn, but just cracked peppercorn or five peppercorn, things like that, or Szechuan. So you can really play with root vegetables in glazing. You can even do white potatoes glazed in sugar or in caramelized sugar, which is a classic preparation. Surprisingly good. I don't know how much nutritional value is there once you've peeled. So you peel down a potato usually into a round or a football shape, and so you turn them, and then you finish them and glaze them. The trick is when you do it in a pan is to get whatever it is to cook with enough stock or water in the same time period that they're not too hard in the middle. You can cheat by blanching them first, so they're kind of an al dente with a little extra chew, and then using much less water and just enough to get your sugar and butter and stuff to go into a sauce, and then quickly cook it down. So that's another way to do it. So those are really good things to do with beets and root veg, but just dressing them with oil and vinegar, or shaving them, put them as part of your salad.
To make your urine turn purple.
Yeah, they do. More red. It can look really kind of bloody red. If you eat a lot of raw beets, you can definitely get 1 to 2 days of very dark urine, and you can get very dark other things too. So yeah, don't get too scared. It's actually okay.
Yeah, so, you don't have porphyria, which is a genetic condition.
Yeah, so no blood going on. So the thing is, red beets have an extremely high amount of colors in the dye, and the dye is extremely strong. It's also water soluble, which means it really easily goes into your boiling water or into your body, and it comes out pretty easy. It passes quickly, but it's it's strong.
Shrimp, no, the shrimp question and the beet question were separate.
Yeah, I'm not sure I would do beet and shrimp together. Although you could do pickled shrimp, which is big down in the Carolinas. You could do pickled shrimp with pickled beets, probably. Or you could do a cold preparation where they're pre-cooked, and you could do poached shrimp with some form of a chilled beet salad. But it would stain like crazy. So you'd have to put it on there and eat it right away.
You can do golden ones with that.
Yeah, golden or candy stripe, the chayogas, are much easier to work with because they don't, neither one of those bleed very much.
Yeah.
What seasoning should you use for a shrimp stock? So shrimp stock is best made with shells and tails. The shells are actually more flavorful than the meat portion, and they're the leftover after you peel them. Although so much of the shrimp now is all peeled, pre-peeled. Make it easier, but yeah, you can do that with any of your lobsters or crayfish or anything. So you're going to ideally sweat them in a little oil, and not really brown them, but just get some heat on them. I would add a very small amount of onion, celery, and we're talking for a gallon of finished stock, less than a pound of vegetable. You could use a little bit of fennel, fresh fennel or fennel tops if you're using the bulb for something else. Fennel always works in seafood stocks. Thyme, bay leaf, peppercorn are your classics. It's and that's how you make a fish fumet or a seafood fumet, which is basically the equivalent of a stock for using white fish bones and things like that. So you don't need a lot of vegetable. You get a lot of flavor out of it. It will cook in 30 minutes. Even heavy lobster shells no more than like 45 minutes. You don't need to cook them very long. You can reduce it down further. The other thing there's add sometimes some acid. So a drop of white vinegar or wine vinegar or a little bit of white wine is added. or just a little bit of lemon juice or like a half of a lemon floats around in there. So there, if you get into classical cooking and saucier work, there are actually many types of fish stock and seafood stocks. I think there's kind of one, but depending on the type and the hardiness of the flavors in the fish, what you can use, there are actually more things to be put in there.
There are some people who eat the shells.
You can eat the shells, yeah. They're commonly eaten in much of the world. Some people eat all the way down to the tail. I find the tails hard and kind of maybe dangerous. But yeah, in Korea and most of Asia, it's always a preference. Parts of all over the world, because that is the most flavorful. There's a protein chitin in there, which is similar to what we have in our fingernails. It's also found in mushrooms, some types of mushrooms. It's a selective protein, but could be potentially good for, as potentially we need a little extra. So yeah, and if you're gonna grill, so if you're gonna grill, and some shrimp have harder shells than others based on variety, but if you're gonna grill them shell on. Anytime you can do that, you get more flavor from that roasting shell, the grilling process, and then you can either remove it or you can choose to eat it. So yeah, but those stocks are kept very light. Salt, pepper, bay leaf, peppercorn, or not even salt really. You can add salt at the end, but thyme, parsley stems, celery.
I realized he didn't mean to. I just figured some people do anyway.
What?
Eat the shells.
Oh yeah, it's actually very common. So
yeah.
So that's I would recommend trying it. If you haven't, it's it's decent.
Okay, do you prefer to cook more with chicken or duck eggs?
Well, we don't have any ducks, so we don't do. I buy duck eggs for one of our pastas, and I have cooked them occasionally. But so yeah, we cook with chicken eggs.
A lot of bakers like to bake with duck eggs, right?
Well, home bakers, not so much commercially, but yeah, you get a better crumb in quick breads and egg-related pastries. So yeah. And my mom asked, "What do you call the football shape?" Yes. It's called a it's called turned or tournée.
Okay.
And it's a 7-sided football shape. If it is large, like a whole potato, and it's like, and so a tournée is usually about 1.5 inches, maybe 2 inches long, 7-sided football. Usually flat ends. And if you make a really large one, it's called a chateau. So like you may have heard of chateau potatoes, which are glazed or roasted or tossed with meat stock, and that's, you can do
basically a house potato.
Yeah. They're very good. You can poach them. You can actually just do a simple English style poach, which is just salted water, or you can use a bouillon that has some nice flavors in it. So yeah.
So Curie says that she has cabbage. If I make a cabbage and beet coleslaw, what dressing would be good on that?
I'd use oil and vinegar or strong vinegar. You can cut it with some sugar or honey. You can make it as sweet or as you like. I mean, you can add in some sour cream or mayonnaise or other things, but I do find that it will. If you're using the beets, it's going to stain the mayonnaise, so the vinegar is going to help hold it. Yeah, so that's. But I do something nice and tart. Maybe add some tarragon if you have option for herbs running around. Fresh or dry tarragon, it's pretty strong. You don't need a lot. That's got a very light, sweet anise licorice flavor. Or you could do some shredded fennel. And then you could use your tops and stalks for fish fumet or seafood shell stock. Yeah.
And are the shells of the shrimp soft genetically?
I don't know. Well, so you have two different things. So you kind of have colder water shrimp and warmer water shrimp. So there's different varieties. So the highest quality that get the best price are Gulf water shrimp from the U.S. Gulf are considered some of the best. They're white shrimp or pink shrimp. Most of our shrimp come from Asia, and they're grown in much warmer waters than even the Gulf. So tiger shrimp, which is among the most common, brown shrimp, other things, they tend to have a little softer shell, but also they molt. So as they grow and expand every so often, they molt off their shell and start growing a new one. So if you catch them in that growing the new shell, they can have a very thin, they can have a thinner shell at that point also.
Hmm.
So that's a factor. But in general, the shells aren't very hard, regardless, but you will see some variation.
And Noah's Ark says too much roughage, too crunchy.
Yeah.
What
kind of vinegar? I think cider vinegar is a good all around because it's inexpensive and it's got a little fruitiness on it. So, and I would look for a Bragg's or
A good one.
a good one that says with the mother. That's probably an organic vinegar, maybe from Italy. Maybe it doesn't have to be Bragg's, but that style of a true apple cider vinegar versus where they take malt vinegar and they throw a little apple flavor and some corn, or they put some caramel color in there, and that's the big jug that sits next to the white vinegar that costs probably about the same price. That's a good indication they didn't use much apple juice in there. So you could do that, or a white wine vinegar. Funny thing is, you can take white vinegar or the cheap so-called cider vinegar, and by adding some sweetness to it, you can actually balance it out. And white vinegar makes good coleslaw dressing because it has a real sharp, clean taste, and you overcome that sort of nasty aspect of commercial vinegar with a little bit of sugar. But red wine vinegar works great too. You don't have to buy really expensive red wine vinegars. They come in all different styles and qualities. If you can find an aged or a wood aged vinegar, they're really nice. So I think it's Duluth is one of the brands that is a French import that has great vinegar. Yeah, they're a bunch more money, but they have a Limousin cider, an apple cider, or champagne vinegars, tarragon, which is just champagne or white wine vinegar with tarragon steeped in it, so you can do that yourself. And they have a red wine and aged red wine vinegar, and they're really, really good. They're kind of what I think of as some of the best import ones. But some vinegars are sweeter, like balsamic stains like crazy. That has a lot of sugar, but some are more concentrated and a little sweeter, and some are a little tartar and crisper, and you can use them differently. So the more fat, the tartar you want it.
Ozark says, granddaughter is 14 months, only has 2 teeth. It doesn't keep her from eating P&J sandwiches. Yeah, and no teeth, and we're trying to eat a fish. A plastic fish. A chew toy. But anyway, sorry. Likes
we changed over our peanut butter a few months ago.
Oh yeah.
So I on a whim bought some. It was
Kirkland
or Costco branded, 100% natural. I think it's their organic peanut butter. It's twice the price of Jif or whatever. So I want to try it, and it doesn't separate a lot. It's a little bit thicker. You do have to stir it up a little bit, but it doesn't separate a lot. It has a really, really nice roasty peanut flavor. It's 100% peanuts. I think they do put a small amount of salt in it, and there's no sugar or anything added. So commercial peanut butter is emulsified with a lot of sugar, and sometimes even some other vegetable oils to bring it all together, keep it creamy, keep the cost down. So it's very high in sugar. This one doesn't have any sugar, and the funny thing is it's so peanutty and roasty. You eat it, you don't even notice it doesn't have sugar.
It's nice.
It's actually really good. So
and it's not overly oily like some of the.
No, some of them you really had to stir in a really thick amount of oil from the top every time. Yeah. This one you do have to refrigerate a lot of the natural peanut butters after you open them. But yeah, we found it costs a little extra, but it's a couple dollars, and we go through enough peanut butter, but not huge amounts. I kind of think we're gonna hang with this one for a while.
No, it's good. It's definitely good. Yeah. Carrie says she has a variety of vinegars in her cupboard.
Yeah, we have a number of them. I'm always playing with them. I got some big jugs of the Duluth. I got commercial jugs of Duluth downstairs. I was doing some chilled salads and things with the business, and so I went ahead and bought into some big 5 liter, 10-liter jugs.
I know milk naturally has sugar in it, so.
Yeah, milk definitely has. Well, lactose is
a
form of sugar, and there's other sugars in there.
Yeah.
So
anything ending in ose.
So there's a new study that they were talking about, came up this week, that kids who eat skim milk or 2% milk are 40% more likely to become obese later in childhood than
compared to whole
those
milk.
that eat whole milk,
Yeah.
because there is so much sugar and the digestion isn't slowed down and balanced by the fat. So we used to think that taking away, giving the 4% or whole vitamin D milk wasn't healthy for kids or even for adults. And now we're finding it's the opposite, that by separating out too much of the cream, because they've already separated out about half the
Well, you
cream.
don't fill yourself. If you have all
Yeah.
that cream in there, you also fill yourself, and you're going to stop sooner, so you
there,
don't get as much sugar either.
so there may be a lot to actually
Having the
drinking
fat
whole milk or using whole milk.
and
You
having
maybe,
more fat in the diet.
if you
in
have too
general.
much, I mean, you can definitely bulk up by drinking gallons of milk every day.
Yeah.
There's high school and college students that do that for football and whatever else. They drink 2 gallons of milk a day. But yeah, going skim milk versus whole milk, I think, is changing.
Yeah. Makes me mad when they add stuff. Well, they add vitamin D to a lot of milk, especially for kids, but that's primarily because there's not that many foods that have vitamin D in it, and the only other way to get it is to go outside, and not many of our kids are outside, especially in our part of the country in this time of year, and this age. They're not really outside.
I think the milk tastes better with the cream. Yeah. There's a balance to it. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
And
it's really almost more of a food than a drink.
It is. It's definitely a food. It's the beginning. So a high-fat commercial cow typically could produce up to almost 8% cream, I believe. So out of that portion of milk, which is part of the reason it separates. So they actually only skim off about half of it, bring it down to about 4%. I think maybe it's 3.5 is the minimum, but I think it's 4 for vitamin D whole milk. So you still have been able to set aside
for basically whole milk. They just add the vitamin D to it, right?
No, they don't.
Add vitamin D.
The vitamin D is added back, especially to the A and D is added to the skim in 2%.
Yeah, it's added.
I'm not sure they add it to the whole because
I'm pretty sure they have to.
It's already there.
I don't think it's much in milk. I think they add it to the milk. I don't think it's natural. Used to know a guy who was super skinny and drank 2 gallons of whole milk a week. Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
that would make sense. Okay, when you use microgreens, do you mainly just put them on top of dishes, or do you make whole dishes out of them? And if you do have any
that's a good question. So microgreens are really garnish. Problem is they wilt easily. They don't last long. If you put them over, if you have a real hot dish, you can lose them real quick, especially depending on what type. Some are very, very fragile. Microgreens, there's these rainbow blends that people buy and use a lot in restaurants. People put them in everything because they look nice.
You can mix them into your salad.
But they don't. Yeah, there's a complaint that it's not serving a purpose. And so garnish should have a edible, functional, desirable purpose, in sort of the strictest sense. So,
well, I know a microgreen that adds a purpose to it that I would love to have in my salads and other places. Sorrel.
Well,
something tart.
Any microgreen that's individual or you select them is going to have a purpose, because each microgreen has a different look, but it also has a different flavor. So you can use micro cilantro and garnish when you want a cilantro flavor, or sorrel is sour.
Mm-hmm.
And so you can use it for the aesthetic, but if you select one or two or a blend of things that actually complement your meal, that would be the best use. So yes, you can put a little tuft on top. I've also worked with chefs that complain that you can't just throw microgreens on everything. They actually need to be tossed and seasoned and dressed, because if it's a salad and you're just putting them on, they need to be dressed. I think that's kind of pushing it. Some microgreens like beet greens are super delicate, and amaranth, which is a red, is probably the most delicate, but they so I would not dress those. I think there's some really hearty ones, so you could mix them into salads to give them a little burst of flavor, but you can do that with herbs too. A lot of people have traditionally torn leaves of herbs into salads, so they're not just our regular lettuce.
So give a little more flavor.
Yeah, in fact, salads in general were not the plain lettuce that we do now. It's pretty boring. So you can add in so you can use them in all those different capacities. I would say that popcorn shoots, which are pretty short living, but they're about 3 inches tall, are really sweet at first bite, and then they get kind of corn flavored and a touch of bitterness on the end.
Hmm.
They can be used as a nice garnish and flavor contrast. And then sunflower shoots are some of the hardiest. They get really big. You can make a salad out of those or really use them to top. So people will top sandwiches, how we
With
use
sunflower
sprouts.
microgreens and stuff.
Yeah, so you could use some of the microgreens in sandwiches or you know, built into a dish. But I'd say sunflowers, and they grow so fast and they're so cheap.
And chickens love them.
Yeah, that's a good one to
It's a
really
good one to grow
integrate
for your
into
chickens.
things. So yeah.
Microgreens with clothes on? Huh? Okay. Um, yeah, they want to say they have less sugar, so they add xylitol.
Well, yeah, sugar, alcohol, or any of the other, you could use
Fake
Splenda
sugar syrup.
or whatever else. It's just,
Xylitol, you got to make sure dogs cannot have that at all.
yeah, I know that
Yeah,
was,
that's the bad one for them.
yeah, so that would be in a reduced sugar or a sugar-free peanut butter. There's other alternatives, but yeah, that's so, and it should pretty well note that it's a reduced calorie
Oh,
peanut butter or something. Yeah.
yeah, you kind of went over my head. Noah's Ark with dressed microgreens
Yes.
with clothes on.
Yes.
I completely missed that one.
So yeah, so you can buy these blend boxes, which are the cheapest because there's flexibility of the farmers to do that. And then you can buy individual ones. So individual clamshells, which are usually 4 to 8 ounce boxes, can run 30 some dollars on a wholesale level. So they go a really, really long ways. I could buy, for a dish for a busy place, I might buy 1 box or 2 boxes a week.
Mm.
Um,
So you're only using a few pieces.
You're using a little pinch. People get really crazy with them and shut their brains off and throw them on everything. I think that fad we're 10 years down the road or more on that. So people have kind of gotten over the fascination of using it on everything.
So we're just going to start with
with sunflower. They're super easy. They grow fast. They're actually among the more tasty ones.
They're crunchy. They have some texture.
You can put them into something like a tacos or a sandwich or something where you're looking for a crunch and an actual flavor component. They would be really nice.
Yeah.
And they're quite healthy. The other thing I notice is microgreens that are grown outdoors are much hardier than the greenhouse, indoor or hothouse ones are pretty fragile. So you can get a much nicer effect.
That makes sense because you have the wind blowing on them. It strengthens their stems.
Well, and if you can do them spring and fall with cold weather,
they're growing slower.
You have to look at what their germination, if they withstand frost or not. But you can get some really, you get a better product that way.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of growing slowly, our greenhouse right now is beginning into the 40s and 50s during the day, depending on the sun level. And we still have spinach cotyledons. We don't have any true leaves on them yet, and they sprouted about 2 weeks ago. So they're going to be nice and crunchy once they get going.
Yeah. Oh yeah, the squirrels will eat them. That is one thing you do have to, when you grow microgreens outdoor, which most people don't, even though they grow in a few days, they typically net them. So they're putting a cloth or netting over them to keep them from scorching. You have to be very careful with them.
Keep the rabbits off of them. Keep the squirrels off of them.
Yeah, and just the extreme sun in the summer can burn them.
Cloth type. Yeah.
Yeah, so that is a consideration, but they grow nice indoors. They're actually safer to grow them in that type of environment than in a really warm, wet environment.
Yeah.
The other thing you'll see a lot of people buying or growing are micro leafy greens, so baby starts of all kinds of other things. So in micros you get kohlrabis and beets and celery, but then you get mini stuff. I've even bought little packs of carrots that were like that big and little beets and turnips, and then you can get them a little bit bigger before you get to baby size and use those as garnishes in stews or salad plates and things. So yeah.
This past week, Diana of Justice Acres' grandson's dog stole his medicine, which was hidden in the PB sandwich. Medicine lethal. Yeah, I mean, depends on the medicine, but yes, definitely. They make the dog throw up. Give it charcoal too, and try to get it out of the system that way. But yeah, you gotta watch meds in general with babies, animals in the house. Absolutely. So, and you can have the wrong, especially depending on the size too. Um, you hear stuff about, dogs and certain foods like uh, raisins and such. We actually had our Saint Bernard who stole a box of granola that was full of raisins and ate the entire thing one time. He did fine. I'm sure that much fiber might have given him some belly aches, but he was absolutely fine. But he was a huge dog, so that does help
Yeah,
too.
the vet said don't worry about it. It
Yeah,
should be all right.
yeah.
Because
So it
again,
depends.
the biggest where they see lethality or kidney issues is small dogs that eat a reasonable amount of raisins.
Yeah, it's just too much for the size. Um, let's see. Do have to start them in my greenhouse. It's going to be built. think I think my free range chickens will not let them be at
Yeah,
that.
so
Yeah,
using a frame or something is probably helpful anyways.
yeah,
But yeah, if you have free range animals, that's you'll
yeah.
never get to them.
Part of the reason why we net our chickens through the year, through 3 seasons of it anyway, do chicken tractors with the poultry net around them, is to keep them where we want them to be instead of letting them go all over the place. Um, so that does help keep them from sneaking into the garden. Although occasionally we'll still have. We had one who was jumping out of the net and jumping into the over the 6 foot fence into the garden to hide her eggs one time. But I mean, good hiding spot, good food around, so why not? But
A pound of chocolate's a lot. I
yeah,
know for the chocolate, again, chocolate's very size dependent. And like a milk chocolate that has a lot of sugar in it, which many of the bunnies are, is not nearly as bad as like a
dark.
70 or 80%, high quality semi-sweet chocolate.
The ones we love.
The other thing that happens is the dogs are more attracted to the sugar than
Mm.
anything. And so if they get a flavor for chocolate, they'll continue to want it. My understanding is having some chocolate isn't like a few chocolate chips probably isn't going to hurt them, but it builds up and becomes a problem. So the biggest reason you want to keep it away is that the progressive
So develop a
consumption of
taste.
chocolate will could
Yes.
lead to problems down the road and just a desire for them to always want to have chocolate. So things like cocoa powder are probably worse than a milk chocolate that has all the milk and sugar blended in, and then of course our dark chocolates.
Child to give dog chocolate covered raisins. People used to use raisins as training treats too.
Yeah, I
They
don't
were
think
from,
people get
yeah.
really freaked out about it. I don't think they're the worst thing
I
in the
think there've
world.
been some issues with some dogs, so they tell us not to do
Yeah,
it
I
with
mean,
all
again, a
dogs.
Chihuahua versus our Saint Bernard is a very different situation on how their body works. I think the biggest problem with the raisins, I'm not sure. So raisins produce a lot of glucose, more so than fructose.
Yeah,
Dogs don't handle glucose particularly well, although they get glucose in other things that humans give them. And I think the potential, if they eat a whole lot of raisins, they can have a blood sugar instability, which is harder for them to control than we control sugar. And so, again, that goes to your really small dogs having a major diabetic issue. I'm not sure if it's a kidney liver toxicity or if it's actually a sugar spike issue. So that,
which a sugar spike issue can end up causing long-term
yeah.
kidney damage. So if you're constantly fluctuating, I mean, diabetics have kidney problems when they have long-term.
Oh, wait, Picket Fence says hello.
Hello, hello. Um, yeah, it's 10 o'clock at night already. So yeah, you come in to say hi at the end.
Yeah, so I
That's
don't,
fine.
so I don't know if we have any vets that know more, but that's my
Yeah,
reading over time is there's a lot of extreme scare over some of these things, and people build more and more. If somebody lost a dog or a pet,
yeah,
they're definitely important, and we definitely want to keep them away. But again, with the larger animals, it's not maybe life and death, an immediate emergency if they get a couple raisins or they get
yeah.
a little bite of chocolate or something. Um, so yeah.
That works for people too. The more chocolate I eat, the more I want this from your mom. Yeah, I like chocolate too, but I especially like the dark chocolate. Yeah. Um, except for nibs, that's too dark for me.
Well, yeah,
Cocoa
they're
nibs.
not fully
Gotta have
processed.
a little bit of sugar in them. Um, Any other last cooking questions before we wrap up for the night? Because it is 10 o'clock and I got to work in the morning and got to put a little girl down. Yeah, White Picket Pen says they'll watch the replay. And yeah, that's always good. Glad you could join us at the very end though. And otherwise, what's up on for this week? Anything coming up this week?
We're just doing. I got a good amount of pasta to produce. I got some big orders that I need to fill.
Including our local hospital, right?
Yeah,
That's
they're
awesome.
due for a big order.
Yeah.
So we're gonna work on that, and then um, I've got a lot of paperwork and things that's going on, like the butchering class. I have a specialty dinner that I've been invited to. We're working on a charity wine dinner or wine event that we participate in. We mostly just bring product out, but there's some work on that. Keeping our stock up and going. I've got all kinds of other projects that we've got going, some new projects and just compliance. We've got taxes and employee stuff and other things that all have to get done before the end of the month. So I've got a long list um, of projects that need to be done, and then trying to figure out how to get time to produce and take care of Bella do things when she's sleeping. And
yeah. And I have one more photography project to do for you, which I'm gonna hopefully do this week. That's the other thing, we want to put the pasta up on Etsy as well. So I'm
I
getting
wanted
pictures
it up
for it. I know.
beginning of December so we could
Oh,
actually
you wanted
sell
it
it.
up in November.
Yeah, because I wanted to actually
Yeah.
be able to sell it.
But yeah.
For the
So
Christmas. We
that,
stayed
I
pretty
know.
busy through
Yeah, we
December,
did.
but so if we had a huge spike, that would not, it would have been difficult, although we could have definitely filled additional orders.
Yeah.
So yeah, we want it to be up on Etsy, although our direct source through our website is similar or better pricing, and
Yeah.
direct to us or at our markets is even better pricing because we don't have a huge amount of shipping costs, which is actually the main difference in local purchasing versus.
And a little less packaging with the.
Yeah, I don't really make any more on it. I just have to do all the packaging and shipping,
Yeah.
and that eats up a couple dollars on a package,
Yeah.
actually. So
yeah, that's going on. So this week my main project will be getting those pictures ready for Etsy. That'll probably happen next weekend because I work all week, and trying to figure out the schedule with Bella is our biggest challenge this week. So we'll see how that goes, and we'll give an update on that next week. Luckily, this transition is happening in the winter when we don't have to worry about anything really outside.
So when we get busier,
Oh
we're
my
trying
gosh.
to figure out how to. We've got 2 markets, so we've got to cover our markets differently this year. We're not going to be expanding any other markets. I have other places to expand. We're expanding more through our restaurants and our retail. Markets are really hard activity. There's a lot of time and a lot of logistics and moving things around and getting them out into vehicles, and it's a long day, and it's not always a profitable day. It depends on what's going on.
But it's good for long-term marketing.
Yeah, it's a good process. It's just we don't want to be doing 10 markets. There are a couple people that do 10 or 15 or 20 markets around the state.
Yeah.
But in general,
our friends
for what we do, it doesn't work well.
Our friends at Shady Side are at like half the markets on the west side of the state.
They do like 4 or 6 a week, but they do markets every other week for the most part. So they're moving
just seem
around.
To do more.
We have a cheese vendor that I think is doing 20 or 30 some markets a week in the summer. He's got lots of students, but they're not making the cheese. They're handling and aging it. They have to portion it. They have to weigh it and inventory it and get it out. So there's plenty to be done.
Yeah.
But they don't have the production end.
Yeah.
So yeah, we know that the markets that we do right now, there's other markets in the area that we'd like to do. We just don't think it fits our program.
And it just, some of them are a little bit further distance from us.
Yeah, we'd like to go. We'd like to do South Haven, but we don't know any way how to do it.
South Haven or Holland or Grand Rapids or anything like that.
Yeah, do a couple of the big markets. We have to be at big markets. We don't sell enough product. We're a specialty, and we're not in an Italian community. We're in a fairly non-Italian community. Until you get over towards Detroit, there's a good Italian community.
There's some Italian farmers, just not.
Yeah, there's just not a good. So the amount of pasta eating or the desire for good pasta versus casserole pasta is moderate. So if we go to a little local farm market, we don't sell enough to cover costs for being there. So we have to be at. But when we're at premier markets, we do really, really well because people are seeking those type of products, and we can move plenty of
He
product.
even had some people getting off the highway, Chicago, Detroit trek to stop at the Kalamazoo Farmers Market sometimes.
It's a really good market.
Yeah.
There are people coming from out of
It's a
town.
big market. Yeah.
Yeah, we get lots of responses that our local market is actually very comfortable and well attended, and that it's one of the better markets in the region.
Yeah.
So yeah, so we're there.
Yep.
That's sort of our priority. So
that's where we're at right now. We'll let you know how things go next weekend, and I tell you what, another thing that would be nice to do is start looking at seed catalogs and get those orders in soon. So for next weekend, if you bring your ideas, what you guys want to start this year, anything new and all of that, we'll kind of open up the discussion to seeds.
if we don't get seeds ordered soon, some of the
Some of them
short
will
on
go
supply
out.
ones will be gone pretty quick.
So I gotta look at those probably during the week this week. That's something I could do while nursing.
People doing keto don't help. Yeah, keto's tough.
No.
That's not. Yeah, we
Gluten-free, gluten-sensitive to keto is not helping your pasta business, but there's
Yeah.
plenty of people who eat pasta still.
Yeah, yeah. So.
And you're working on gluten-free.
Well, that's another thing I want to get. I need to get through a couple of these projects, but I want to
It's
do
on the list.
more test batches, and then I have a local miller that has some regional and ancient grains. So
You missed that question earlier. Is there any gluten-free pasta that's tasty? Someone asked that a while ago.
That's debatable, but there are ones that are much more palatable and fairly pleasant.
They taste
and
different.
there are ones that are terrible. Yeah.
They're going to taste different.
The texture is the biggest thing. You can't fully replicate the texture perfectly, although they're getting closer. But yeah, commercially jovial is what I like best. It's a brown rice and quinoa blend. It works pretty well. Delalia is now putting a lot of, and Barilla are both putting out big industrial Italian import stuff that's pretty decent.
Yeah.
There's some corn pasta that has a decent chew, but it tastes like corn, and sometimes that's off-putting because you don't want it to taste like corn.
Right.
Sometimes you don't mind, so that's a consideration.
Yeah.
Yeah. Banza, yeah, a lot of people are liking the Banza.
Yeah.
I think that's definitely in play for commonly available and one of the preferred items out right now. So yeah.
She won seeds that arrived last week. She's putting out a video tomorrow.
Oh, nice.
But you guys, check out each other's channels if you haven't already. Subscribe.
Yeah.
The White Picket Fence, Built on the Rock. There's a number of people who have some channels in here and their own videos. So yeah, Curie, that'll be interesting to see what seeds you got, what seeds you won. Otherwise,
we're still looking for the bacon seeds.
The bacon seeds. Well, the Hollers have some bacon seeds. They're growing up pretty fast, actually.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that won't be this year. Bacon seeds.
No, we're not doing that this year.
Maybe in a year or two. We'll have to see. But yeah, so we will be back next week, and we could talk about seeds next week. So you guys all have a good night and a good week, and we will see you at 9 o'clock Eastern Standard Time next Sunday. Okay, bye guys.
Good night.